train rattled through the American countryside, carrying its cargo of fear and uncertainty. Inside the cramped cars, 32 German women clutched their swollen bellies, whispering prayers in their native tongue. Greta pressed her face against the cold window, watching foreign landscapes blur past. She was 7 months pregnant, her husband missing somewhere on the Eastern Front. Would she ever see him again? Would her child know its father? The other women shared similar stories: soldiers' wives, nurses captured during retreat, civilians caught in the chaos of war's end. Now they were prisoners, though treated more gently than they'd ever imagined captivity could be. When the train finally stopped, armed guards appeared at the doors. The women's hearts hammered. This was the moment they'd been dreading. Greta reached for Liesel's hand beside her, finding it ice cold despite the summer heat outside. An American officer stepped forward, his face weathered but not unkind. Through an interpreter he spoke words they couldn't quite believe. "Welcome to Camp Florence. You and your babies will be safe here." Safe? The word felt foreign, impossible. They were led into a compound that looked nothing like the horror stories whispered back home. Clean barracks stood in neat rows. Medical tents bore red crosses. Gardens bloomed with vegetables tended by other prisoners who'd arrived before them. Inside the medical facility, a grey-haired nurse named Ruth smiled warmly. She'd delivered hundreds of babies in her Illinois hometown before volunteering for this assignment. To her, these women weren't enemies. They were mothers, just like her daughter back home. Dr. Morrison examined each woman carefully, noting due dates and checking for complications. Greta flinched when he reached for her belly, but his touch was professional, gentle. "Healthy baby," he said through the interpreter. Strong heartbeat. That first night, lying on a real bed with clean sheets, Greta cried silently. She'd expected concrete floors, starvation, brutality. Instead, she'd been given blankets, nutritious food, and something she thought she'd lost forever: dignity. Weeks passed in a rhythm of routine and growing trust. The women attended prenatal classes where American nurses taught breathing exercises and infant care. They sewed tiny clothes from donated fabric, their hands creating beauty amidst the ugliness of war. Liesel was the first to go into labor, her screams echoing through the August night. Greta held her hand while Nurse Ruth coached her through contractions. 12 hours later, a baby boy's cry split the air, the sound of new life in a world grown weary of death. But then came the moment everyone had been dreading. What would happen to the baby? Would they take him away? Liesel clutched her son to her chest, eyes wild with protective fury, ready to fight despite her exhaustion. Instead, Dr. Morrison entered carrying papers. "Birth certificate," he said simply, handing the official document to Liesel. Her son's name, date of birth, place of birth, all recorded as if he were any American baby, born free and with a future. Tears streamed down Liesel's face as she read her son's name in English. Klaus Peter Schmidt, born August 15, 1945, Florence, Arizona, United States of America. The war might have made them prisoners, but it hadn't stolen their children's identities. Word of Klaus's birth spread through the camp like wildfire. The fear that had gripped the expectant mothers began to loosen its hold. Perhaps these Americans meant what they said. Perhaps mercy wasn't just a word, but a practice. September brought 3 more births, each time ending with a birth certificate presented like a gift. The women began to believe that their babies wouldn't be torn from their arms, that somehow in this strange land, their humanity was being recognized. Greta's time came on a cool October morning. The pain was overwhelming, but so was the presence of women who'd become sisters. They sang German lullabies to distract her, their voices blending in harmony that transcended barbed wire and war. Her daughter arrived at dawn, pink and perfect and screaming with impressive lungs. Greta held her close, breathing in that incomparable newborn smell, and felt something break open in her chest, a flood of love so powerful it hurt. When Nurse Ruth placed the birth certificate in her hands, Greta couldn't read through her tears. Anna Marie Weber, it said. Her daughter existed on paper, recognized by a government her country had fought against. The irony wasn't lost on her. The camp commander, Colonel Hayes, surprised everyone by visiting the maternity ward. He was a father himself, his own son fighting somewhere in the Pacific. He looked at these German babies and saw only innocence, only hope for a better future. These children didn't start this war, he told his staff. They shouldn't pay for it. His orders were clear. Every baby born in Camp Florence would receive the same medical care and documentation as any American infant. Politics ended at the nursery door. Winter arrived, bringing cold nights and warm camaraderie. The mothers gathered in the common room, babies nursing or sleeping in makeshift cradles. They shared stories of home, of husbands and brothers, of a Germany they no longer recognized. Some babies were born premature, requiring extra medical intervention. The camp doctors worked around the clock, treating these children of former enemies with the same dedication they'd shown to Allied soldiers. Lives were lives, regardless of nationality. Christmas came, unexpected and poignant. American volunteers brought gifts, tiny sweaters, wooden toys, even a small tree for the maternity barracks. The gesture broke something in Greta's heart, reminding her that kindness existed even in the midst of hatred. By spring 1946, 23 babies had been born in Camp Florence. 23 birth certificates had been issued. 23 mothers had discovered that their captors possessed compassion they'd been told Americans lacked. Letters began arriving from Germany, the first communications many women had received in over a year. Some brought joy, husbands alive and searching for them. Others brought grief, families lost to Allied bombing or Soviet advance. Each letter was read and reread until the paper wore thin. The American authorities arranged for repatriation, though the process was slow and complicated. Germany lay in ruins, divided and occupied. Some women wondered if returning home with an infant would be harder than staying in this prison that had become a sanctuary. Greta received word that her husband, Hans, had survived and was in a British camp. The news made her sob with relief. He didn't know about Anna yet, didn't know he was a father. How would she tell him? Would he believe what she'd experienced? Nurse Ruth helped the women prepare for their journeys home. She taught them how to care for babies in difficult conditions, what to do if medicine wasn't available, how to keep infants warm and fed when resources were scarce. The day Liesel's group was scheduled to leave, Nurse Ruth presented each mother with a care package: powdered milk, cloth diapers, baby clothes, and most precious of all, their children's birth certificates sealed in waterproof pouches.